What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal_Gupta 95 on Twitter. V, how are you doing? We got another good week in the chamber. We got some heavy hitting games on the slate. I can't wait to break them down. How are you doing? How you living?
Doing good. Can't believe we're already here on week 11. Season's getting close to the end here, but it's been a great run and excited to jump into these games this weekend.
It literally has flown by. It's kind of crazy how fast it's going. And, a little housekeeping to get out of the way. We are recording this on Wednesday. It is going to be aired on Friday due to a little bit of travel that we got going on this week, but that's okay. We are coming at you on Friday, same time as usual. So that's when you're going to be watching this. And if you were smart, you were already in our Discord, importantnonsense.com. Become a member. That's how you get into our Discord. And that's where you're going to find all of our picks for Thursday night. So I hope all of you were smart enough to already be in there. If not, it's not too late. Get in there right now. There's a lot of good stuff. You can ask us any questions that you need, any feelings that you have on bets that you want to get our opinion on, or even just stuff for your fantasy team. Definitely go check it out. Become a member. We'd love to have you in there. So yes, that's what we have on deck for the Thursday game, which has already happened at the time of this airing. So we're not going to be breaking down the Thursday game like we generally do, but we have a lot of heavy hitting games on the slate. Unfortunately, though, the first one is not one of those heavy hitting games, but we are going to jump right into it and start breaking them down. The first game that we're targeting on this slate, or at least that I'm targeting on this slate here, is Dallas at Carolina. And wow, 10.5 point favorite for Dallas on the road, 41.5 point game total here. I'm not going to lie, V. I sat here at first. I wanted to be scared away from Dallas at minus 10.5, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't find a reason. They're just playing as good a football as they've played all season long. It's showing up right now, and they're absolutely killing it. So I'm leaning on the sign of them covering 10.5 on the road, which I know is huge. It's past our key numbers, so many red flags. But at the end of the day, none of that's going to matter because they're playing the Carolina Panthers. I'm also leaning on the side of over 41.5. It becomes an easy gesture to just say Dallas could potentially cover that all by themselves, but they really technically could. As much of a cliche as that is, Dallas, they're looking as good as they've looked all season. Last week, 49-17 against the Giants. The Giants. And, you might just say, hey, they just have the Giants number. They've got 80 plus points, nearly 100 points on the Giants this season. They covered the 38.5 point game total last week by themselves in 3 quarters. So if that just shows you only a handful more points and they could potentially have covered this one too, it just makes all the sense that 41.5 is just slightly too low. And I get where they're kind of leaning by saying, hey, this game isn't under 40. Carolina might be bad, but we're still going to put this over 41. I think Carolina has enough to go over this line. It really, to me, screams a game that's like 13-35, somewhere in that range. It just makes all the sense when you look at how Dallas has performed, and not just last week. Over their last 3, they have 38.3 points per game. That's most in the NFL. And a lot of that reason is, oh my, CeeDee Lamb is looking like the best receiver in the NFL right now. Since week 7, he leads the NFL in a number of categories. 92.7 PFF receiving grade from our friends over at PFF. 34 receptions. That's also first. 500 receiving yards. That's 3 straight games of 150 yards. And he's got 4.07 yards per route run. So even when he's not getting the ball, he's still accounting for 4 yards of offense every time he runs a route. That is also first in the NFL by a wide margin, almost double the next highest player. And this week, he's going to play a ton in the slot like he has been very much recently. And he's going to see a lot of Troy Hill for Carolina, who has not been very good for them. Unfortunately, Carolina just has a ton of holes on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. They're going to have a difficult time holding down CD Lamb. It looks like CD and Dak are just clicking. They are on the same page right now. When you look at his prop too at 79.5, as much as when we look at the prop market as a whole, 79.5 is a big number for a single game. But given his recent trend of nearly doubling this number a handful of weeks in a row, 4 straight games of 100, 3 of 150, I think 79.5 is a very reasonable number. You could go ahead and get him for a score too, which is going to be, it depends on where you shop, but you're probably going to be under even. So this is going to be a good way to kind of combo those together, take a little bit of extra value out of it. So I really like the side of that. I'm leaning CD Lamb over, Dallas huge points, and I'm going over on the 41.5 here. V, is there anything that you can make of this matchup? Dallas, as impressive as they've been, or even Carolina, as abysmal as they've been. What are you making out of this one?
Yeah, I think everything you said makes a ton of sense. This was the Dallas team that was 17-point favorites against Tommy DeVito and the Giants, which they easily covered. You really can't tell me that the Carolina Panthers are any better than the Tommy DeVito like Carolina New York Giants, which just unfortunately says so much about where this Carolina team is right now. And I don't know. You have Frank Reich coming out today saying he's taking back play calling duties. Honestly, can anybody tell the difference between Frank Reich and Thomas Brown calling plays in Carolina? Because I can't. It all looks the same. It's just a giant mess over there. They can't do anything. Again, they don't do anything well on really any side of the ball. They don't run the ball well. They don't throw the ball well. They don't stop the run well. They don't defend the pass well. They don't do anything over that. I don't know what this team is trying to accomplish right now. And everything you said makes a ton of sense. This is not a team that can score more than 10, 14 points in a game, and they're just going to give up a ton of points to opposing offenses. It seems like J.C. Horn will be back for them after missing a couple months of play, but can't really make that much of a difference. I don't. He's a fine cornerback, but he's missed a ton of times and missed a bunch of games, and he's just not capable of slowing down this Dallas offense single handedly. So yeah, I definitely think taking Dallas minus 10.5, even though it's a big number, but it just makes too much sense. Those guys are rolling. They play so well against these terrible teams. They blew out the Jets to start the year and the Giants to start the year, demolished the Patriots, demolished the Giants again last week. That's what they do. They don't take their foot off the gas against these bad teams. They just keep it rolling. And man, they had 40 points after 3 quarters last week. It was crazy nonstop. So yeah, definitely like this pick, like the like the spread and the total in this one, so it makes a ton of sense to me.
And and you said another, you brought up another good point with JC Horn being potentially back this week. And the last time we saw JC Horn, he was fantastic. So having him be able to come back, the rest of this defense still wasn't good when he was on the field, but that should be a boost to them. Frankly, though, unfortunately, that's not going to matter right now for them because of the way that they match up. JC Horn's not going to be in the slot for them. He's not going to see it as much as they want to try to hit that matchup with CD Lamb. For one, it's probably still a mismatch. A mismatch. But two, he's just not going to see him very often because he doesn't travel to the slot like that. So you're going to have a ton of opportunities for CD to absolutely gash this team. And unfortunately, like you said, Carolina is just the definition of mediocrity in terms of offense. They score 12 to 14 points every game at 13s. Like, it's just really not a great look for them. No matter who their opponent is, they continue to kind of be this very low end offense. And you don't need, frankly, with an offense like Dallas, you don't need a ton of help to hit this over 41, but any little bit's going to help. And I think that that's going to be what makes the difference here of a game that was out of hand probably in the first half, but ends up going over fairly handedly. So
Yep.
I'm right there. The next game we have on the list, though, the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions in Detroit. V, you are on this one. You're on the side of the game total here. Detroit is 7.5 point favorites. The game total here, 47.5 total points. What are you seeing in this one, V? Why are you leaning on the over here?
Yep. I like the over 47.5 here. This Detroit Lions offense is averaging 26.8 points per game. They can absolutely steamroll bad offenses, and don't let anybody fool you. The Chicago Bears defense is bad. They have definitely been better the last few weeks, but a lot of that has to do with the opposing quarterbacks they're going up against, whether that's Bryce Young or Aiden O'Connell or Derek Carr. These are not great quarterbacks. Jared Goff is in a different stratosphere compared to those guys. And anytime this Bears defense goes up against a solid quarterback, they get torched. This is a Chicago defense that does not sack the quarterback. They have 13 on the season, and they do not take the ball away. They have just 9 takeaways on the season, fewest in the league. So this is a game where the line should easily put up 30 points, in my opinion. On the flip side, Detroit's defense has not been great this year. This could be a big issue for them going forward as they get into the playoff picture here. They've allowed 20 plus points in 6 games this year, and they've allowed exactly 38 points in 2 of their last 3 games. Justin Fields is expected to be back for the Bears this week after missing the last month. He was a full participant in practice today on Wednesday. He should be a big boost for this offense. In his last 2 full games played this year, he threw for 4 touchdowns in each of them. So he was looking very, very solid and looking like maybe a franchise quarterback before he went down. Then unfortunately, he kind of went back to his old habits, holding onto the ball too long and taking too many hits and got hurt. But hopefully in this game, he can come back and provide the necessary boost for this offense. I think the Bears should be able to score in the low 20s in this one. So if you have Detroit in the 30s and the Bears in the 20s, this is an easy over for me. But if you don't trust the Bears to do their part in this one, you could also bet the team total or over on the Detroit's team total at 28.5. I think this game is going to solidify what most Bears fans already know, and that is Matt Eberflus, a former defensive coordinator, is bad at coordinating defense. This should be an easy steamroll for this Lions offense.
And that makes a lot of sense considering like the strength of the Lions has been so good. Or I mean, the strength of the Lions offense has been so good. I know that it's a big talking point right now that Jared Goff has officially taken over as the number 1 passing grade in the NFL right now. I believe I don't remember off the top of my head. For our friends
Like
over at PFF,
90.6 or something. It's
90,
really
yeah,
high.
it was really, really high. He's played spectacularly. Their defense has let them down just a little bit. As much as they did play decently well early on, the wheels have kind of started to fall off there. They need a
Yeah.
little bit of WD-40 for the squeaky wheel over there. But otherwise, like you said, the Bears defense, while improved, doesn't really stand too much of a chance here in this one. I think the over, even though 47.5 might seem like a high number for a Bears offense, like you said, they're going to get a boost. They're going to get a jolt. And it's similarly to like we talked about last week when the Cards got back Kyler Murray. The
Mhm.
Bears are without a doubt getting back their best player on their team. And it becomes at the most important position whenever you have something like that happen. Expect some sort of boost. I get that things like morale and momentum aren't columns on our spreadsheets, so they're hard to quantify, but those are definitely things that are going to be happening. You missed the Panthers, Cat. I already told you. Those are definitely things that are going to be happening in that Bears locker room. It's going to give them a little bit of juice. I think 20 is a very reasonable number for them to hit, especially like you said, what they hit the last time we saw Justin Fields in full action. They hit 40 on the Commanders while the Commanders had both of their elite pass rushers healthy and active. So that's something that's obviously a positive to build off of. Can't wait to see how Justin Fields answers the call once he gets back on the field because he's so talented. And when he's at
Yeah.
his peak, he actually is very, very good at football. So, all right. The next game we're looking at on the list, I feel like the people of Tennessee must hate me because I continue to just follow the Titans around and make money off of their pain and suffering. Uh, the Titans just aren't a very solid franchise right now. They have a lot of questions. They're going through a lot of changes. They're kind of right now in the midst of realizing, uh-oh, we're entering a rebuild.
Do you think that maybe
And
they regret trading AJ Brown a couple of years ago? Do you think that maybe that's painting them a little bit?
something that we've talked about for absolutely years now. So yeah, it it and it just doesn't help because it's situations like what they've been through over their last 3 games. So not over the last 2 games, over this road trip that they're on currently, and even prior to that, they have just had a really, really rough go of it. This is technically a shop around game here. So I'm leaning on the side of 6.5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the reason I like 6.5, and you'll have to shop for it, is obviously because it brings us underneath the key number of 7. I found 6.5 at Caesars, as you can see right here, or actually, what was it? MGM, it looks like. So I found it at MGM minus 6.5. Go shop there. It looked like pretty much everywhere else it was at 7. I don't hate it at 7, but 6.5 is a much, much nicer value that I would definitely look for if you can. This is just an overreaction to what Jacksonville put up last week against San Francisco. We talked about that game specifically. We both got our asses kicked taking Jacksonville. They got absolutely swamped. But when you look at it, is it really that surprising? No, not necessarily, because like we had put, the Niners just had questions that they had to answer. And they did.
Yep.
Yes, we are as good as we were previously. We can turn it back on, and we did. That's what those questions they answered. Those were how they approached that game. Bravo to them. They're looking much better as they head into the back half of this season. That doesn't discredit everything Jacksonville's done up to this point. They're a very good team, one of the best against the spread records in the league at 6-3. The Titans, on the other hand, are just not that type of team. Jacksonville, as a favorite this season, is 4-1. Tennessee, we've talked about their road struggles this season. 1-4 against the spread on the road. They score 12.0 points per game as an offense on the road. That's third worst in the NFL. They've scored just 2 touchdowns on the road all season. 2 offensive touchdowns. That is bad. That is so bad considering they've played as many games as they have at home. I don't like this matchup. And in particularly, when we talk about Jacksonville's defense versus Tennessee's offense, we highlighted Josh Allen last week, how he could end up being an issue and what that matchup meant with Trent Williams. Trent Williams ended up playing. This week, Josh Allen draws Andre Dillard, where Andre Dillard is a name a lot of people know, probably has been a consistently decent tackle throughout his career. He is not playing very well at all this season, and especially over the last handful of games. 4 sacks and 14 pressures allowed over his last 4. Allen, on the other hand, has 3 sacks and 25 pressures over his last 4. That is among the best of pass rushers in the league over that span. Tennessee just doesn't have a ton going for them right now. I know that it's like, hey, Will Levis, this is exciting. He could be a better player. They have an uphill battle. This is just too much for them right now. I really love this under 7. If you can get it at 6.5, if you can get it at 7, you could potentially ride for it. Just understand that the value is just not quite as there as you would hope. This is an interesting matchup. Tennessee's had a lot of struggles this season. I feel like we kind of pile on them a lot this year, but it's possibly for good reason. Is there anything that you see in this matchup that I might have missed?
Yeah, one thing that's standing out for me for the Titans is, one of the reasons people like to back them a lot over the last few years is because Mike Vrabel has been a head coach who has proven to be, worth a couple points to the point spread every now and then because he is a solid coach. He knows what he's doing. He has always a great defense. There's a great culture there. But last week he made an unbelievably bizarre decision that has me scratching my head. This Titans team was down 17-3 in the fourth quarter with about 8 or 9 minutes left. They're deep in the Tampa Bay red zone at 4th and goal. He kicks a field goal to cut it to 17-6. He goes from 2 scores to 2 scores. You can't do that in the NFL. If Mike Vrabel is not going to be making plus EV decisions for this football team, there's just no way you can bet on them right now because honestly, he was one of the only reasons people were betting on him betting on this team in the past because people trusted him to be a good enough coach to overcome some of the limitations that they have. But if he's going to make decisions like that, there's just no way you can trust this team. Derrick Henry got totally bottled up last week. Had 24 rushing yards. This team can't win like that. You need to have Derrick Henry pounding the ball. You need to have Tajay Spears creating explosive plays, and then you can allow Will Levis to kind of sit back there and try to find D Hop down the field. But if they can't start with Derrick Henry running the ball, then they're just not going to be able to do anything. So yeah, Jacksonville definitely makes a ton of sense here. But I mean, I do have some concerns with Jacksonville and their offense. Trevor Lawrence has not been all that great this year. He has like 9 passing touchdowns, I think, this year in 9 games. That's not very good. That's not something you expect to see from a franchise quarterback. So, definitely want to see more from them. I know they have still a good record. They should win this division rather easily, although Houston is kind of sneaking up on them. Definitely want to see a lot more from this offense, especially Trevor Lawrence. This could be the week where they kind of finally break out. But until I see that, I'm not really totally ready to bet on them. But maybe the under on this game might be an interesting bet as well, because, like you said, the Titans struggle so much to score the ball. Just 2 touchdowns on the road this year.
Yeah, and at 40.5, it's definitely a reasonable number on the under for sure. It's definitely something worth exploring. And like you said, even last week with Jacksonville, in terms of a lot of their issues have been self-inflicted wounds. It felt like last week every time they got something going for them,
Yep.
they just gave the ball up. They just
Christian
can't.
Kirk's fumble in the red zone is terrible. The pass off of
Etienne,
Tank Bigsby's hand right into Hufanga's
yeah,
hands, that was backbreaking. You just can't do those kind of things.
can't have those issues, can't have self-inflicted wounds. But luckily, those probably aren't going to be an issue for them this week as they were last week against a
Right.
much better opponent. So this is definitely an interesting game to watch. Hopefully, Jacksonville is able to do exactly what most people expect of them in this division for this matchup here. The next game on the list, we have the Raiders heading into Miami to take on the Dolphins. You are on this one. The line on this one has looked crazy. It's all over the place right
Yeah.
now. Miami right now, anywhere between about minus 12.5 to minus 13.5. I know when we were shopping it earlier today, it was at minus 13.5. That's where you got on it. It's obviously something that we'll continue to watch and shop and get as close down as we can. Game total for this one, 46.5. I'll let you break into what side of that you're leaning on, but obviously you're liking the line here too. Which way are you leaning for this one, B?
Yeah, this is gonna match a lot of your sentiments from the Cowboys-Panthers game. I'm all over the Dolphins in this one. Even if you get it at 13.5, it's still fantastic value because this Raiders team is not good. It's kind of surprise. I can't even believe they're 5-5. I had to do a double take when I looked at the records this week, and they're like a half game out of a playoff spot. That is absurd. And don't let that record fool you in the slightest. Their 5 wins are against Denver in week 1 when they were a train wreck, the Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots, the New York Giants, and the New York Jets. Everybody besides Denver has 3 or fewer wins on the season. They've had one of the easiest schedules in the league, and they've barely gotten by with some of those wins. So don't take any of that on face value. This is a terrible Raiders team going up against an absolute juggernaut in the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are averaging 31.7 points per game, first in the league. In their last 4 wins this season, they've won all of those games by at least 14 points. So when they win games, they typically blow the other team out. They're going up against a Raiders offense that is averaging 17.2 points per game, 6th fewest in the league. They've only scored more than 20 points in a game twice this year. This should be an absolute blowout win for the Miami Dolphins. I feel like this is going to be a 31-10 type game. I think the Dolphins should easily get to 30 points, but I don't see this Raiders offense being able to do much. Dolphins have a fully healthy secondary now with Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland. This is an elite secondary that can absolutely shut down opposing offenses. They lost in their last game to the Chiefs. They only gave up 14 points on offense. That last touchdown was a defensive score for the Chiefs. Besides that, the Chiefs offense only got into the end zone twice. The week before that, the New England Patriots only got into the end zone twice. This is a Raiders team that is significantly worse than both of those offenses. So I don't see them being able to get into the end zone more than once in this game. So easy blowout win for the Dolphins. Way too many points on this total at 46 and a half. Love the under.
And it only makes sense, especially when we talk about like narrative based analysis with the Dolphins and how they're like, oh, they can't take down these elite teams. They only swamp these lower teams. Well, make no mistake, the Raiders are on that lower bottom feeder kind of tier of team that they're going to be facing. This team, the lowest they've scored against one of these poorer teams right now, 24 in week 2 against the Pats. And that was actually back when the Pats were playing very,
Yeah,
very good defense.
yeah,
So that's still an impressive feat for how they've been playing. And not to mention, they're coming off a bye. So they're well rested. And that's not a good sign for the Raiders. Now, the only kind of saving grace that I've seen for the Raiders is they are actually rushing the passer decently well. Uh, but I don't know that that's just going to be enough to do anything. Those guys up
no,
front do get some pressure, but frankly, on the back end, they are very poor. This is going to be a game where you're going to see a lot of Tyreek Hill running past dudes and throwing up the deuces. So I like it too. I'm right there with you. It's an interesting one. This is going to be one that is going to move with the public as money continues to come in. So right now we're seeing this line at roughly about 12.5. It says at FanDuel. It's moved to 13.5 at DraftKings, the two biggest books out there right now. Those are going to be ones you're going to want to monitor, especially if you're getting in on this game kind of later on in the week on Friday when this posts. This will definitely be a game that we update for you guys on the value in the Discord. So, like we always say, make sure you're a part of the Discord, get in there, and we'll drop our analysis, our updated analysis on the pick and what we think of the line. Because obviously, it's staying under 14 is a huge value for us. Staying underneath that 2-score mark so we don't have that push there is going to be a huge thing as the week goes on. So that's going to be something we're monitoring for sure.
yep.
The next game on the list, the New York Giants head into Washington to take on the Commanders in a less than interesting matchup in the NFC East. What else is there to say? God bless Tommy DeVito because he's an interesting watch in social media and whatnot. All the memes are hilarious, but bless him. It's not going so well for him on the field. Him and his Giants are just struggling here. The Washington Commanders are 8.5, 9-point favorites. That's a little rich for my blood. But what I do really like here is the game total at 37. You guys know me. I'm hitting an under on 37 all day long, especially when you run across an offense like the New York Giants. You know, they never had a chance last week. They just never had a chance last week. We talked about it 28-0 at halftime. There's just not much for you to say. 49-17 is what that game ended up against Dallas. This is the lowest scoring offense in the NFL. 11.8 points per game. And it was like that before they had Tommy DeVito under center. They've been atrocious over their last 4, 5, pretty much the entire month of October. And even before that, yeah, the last time that they've scored over 16 points was week 2 against Arizona. So let that sink in about
That's
how
like
long.
impossible to do.
Exactly. So they are pretty bad. It's not really looking much better. The 17 that they got last week pretty much all came in garbage time as Dallas already knew they had this one wrapped up, didn't care what the score was to that one. DeVito's turning over the ball at a pretty high clip. He's not helping the case at all. 3 interceptions over his last 2 starts. They don't really have weapons. Washington, as much as Washington, the Washington offense is kind of everybody's favorite gunslinging offense. They just let Sam Howell sit back there and throw it to whoever the hell he wants. Doesn't even matter what's going on. And that's interesting and all. But I feel like with 37, they're going to have to do a ton of the heavy lifting by themselves. I don't think that they're on par with Dallas to absolutely blow this offense or this Giants team out of the water and hit the whole 37 themselves. Now, are they capable? Sure. Why not? But I like the under on this one. I think that you're looking at about 6 points for the Giants, and maybe you're looking at 28 for Washington, 21 for Washington. They don't really need a ton to win this game, and I think they know they don't need a ton to win this game. This is obviously not the most interesting matchup, but do you have any extra tidbits on this one that might add some extra value to this ticket?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I don't know if I'm
It's
prepared
a
to
lo
answer that.
it's a loaded question. It's a loaded question for sure.
Yeah, this is just a mess of a football game right here. I don't even know what to make of it. Last time these teams played early in the year, the Giants somehow won that game 14-7. That was a pretty big upset in its own right. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens here. I think one of the reasons the Giants were able to win that game last time was because they were able to get a ton of pressure on Sam Howell, who at the time was holding onto the ball quite a bit and just not getting rid of it. He's improved on that over the last few weeks. He's getting the ball out much quicker and making better plays down the field. So if he continues to do that, this really shouldn't be much of a contest. Should be a pretty easy win for the Commanders. And yeah, I just don't see what this Giants offense can do right now. They had a chance somewhat early in the game. They got a fourth down goal line stop against the Cowboys, and they got a takeaway relatively early in the game, but they got down to 4th and 2 deep in the Dallas territory, and they just ran the ball at the middle of Saquon, and obviously he got stuffed because they don't trust Tommy DeVito to do anything with the ball. So it's just I don't know what they can do. I don't know what they trust the offense to do. It's really just a mess. I still don't think there's going to be a Darren Waller in this game, so there's going to be a lack of weapons there. There's just not a lot going on here. You really can't do anything but take the under in this game. Anybody who's taking the over, I would like to talk to you first, and then maybe recommend some sort of treatment for you. But yeah, this is a tough situation all around. Not looking forward to watching any of this football game.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito, pretty much last week running for his life. He had 7 rushes for 41 yards. He threw the ball 27 times. He had 14 completions, just 86 yards passing. So,
Rough.
uh, yeah, that's one of those lines that when we talk, it's just something about New York quarterbacks, man. Zach Wilson, Tommy DeVito. There's just something about when you have a line that's like 86 yards, 74 yards, like from a quarterback. It just that's the type of line that, or the type of stat line that just sets in that we're in trouble, that
Yeah.
this is not okay, that I'm in danger, meme type thing. So,
Yep. For sure.
all right. We don't have to spend any more time on a game like that.
Well, it's about to be the same thing all
It's
over again.
about to be
So
another one here. So we have another New York team, the Jets, the New York Football Jets, heading into Buffalo to take on the Bills. The Bills are favored by a touchdown here, a full 7, and the game total on this one under, or excuse me, 40. You're liking the under on this one. I have talked plenty tonight. I will let you start this one off, my friend. What are you seeing with this matchup on why you're targeting at under 40?
yeah. You really just have to take the under whenever the Jets are playing. It's crazy. You just talked about the horrificness of the Giants offense. Well, man, the Jets have been equally terrible. They have scored one touchdown in their last 3 football games. One touchdown in 3 football games. I don't even know how that is physically possible. They are defying the rules of this sport. It's insane. They're averaging 16 points per game this year, third fewest in the league. They have scored more than 20 points just twice this year. And it's a real shame that the offense is struggling so much because the Jets defense has been really, really solid this year. They've allowed less 16 or fewer points 5 times this year, including 3 of their last 4 games. And now they have a pretty juicy matchup against a Buffalo offense that has just completely fallen apart this year. Me and you are both on the Broncos this past Monday night, and we hit that relatively easily. Never in doubt. They were covering that whole time. And part of that is just because we knew this Buffalo offense is just not what it used to be. They're averaging less than 21 points in their last 6 games. They fired Ken Dorsey a couple days ago and promoted Joe Brady to offensive coordinator in order to salvage the season. But honestly, you can't really, think that that's going to fix anything. Joe Brady was in Carolina when they had Sam Darnold and Baker and all those guys, and that just didn't work out either. So you really can't expect anything different this year. And it's really not an issue of who's calling plays. It's just the players are not executing well for this Buffalo offense, and it's mainly been because of turnovers. They have two or more turnovers in 5 of their last 6 games, and now they're going up against a Jets defense that ranks in the top 10 in takeaways. I think this is going to be a mess for both offenses. I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. It's just going to be bad. I mean, you would think the Bills should still be able to win this game, but it's not going to be anything pretty, nothing convincing. This feels like a 23-13 type game to me. So definitely love the under in this one.
It, poor Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
Like, I, I'm not sure where they thought that they were just going to pin all of the struggles of this offense on him. Like, he's the one who's telling Josh Allen to throw the ball to the other team and make really boneheaded plays that we haven't really seen out of him over the last few years. This is kind of the Josh Allen that it feels like we started off seeing in his career, where he's
Mm-hmm.
really making some of these plays that you're like, you have that arm where you have made that play in the past, but that didn't make it a smart decision then, and it doesn't make it a smart decision now. And some of those are starting to regress back to the mean. So it's a tough look for them, especially when you have Diggs tweeting out things that he's tweeting. There's a lot of dysfunction over there right now. That's why, frankly, even as bad as like you said, as bad as the Jets have been, I'm still leaning with the Jets at +7 here. Admittedly, this is a little bit more of a risky bet, but I love the full +7 here because it's an inflated number
Yeah.
still. We've been talking about this Bills team ad nauseum all season. And or maybe not all season, but over the last like month plus 6 weeks at least. They're now 0-6 against the spread in the last 6. They are 1-3 as 7+ point favorites this season. That's a tough look. And that takes place even further back than this huge slide that they've had. I know that the Jets aren't world beaters, but a handful of weeks ago, they did manage to take down Denver. And that's the same team that just, like we said, never in doubt for covering against Buffalo this past week. We both hit on that. Buffalo is just inflated right now, and they're going to continue to be inflated. 7 is too many points. And the biggest difference here of why this is a slightly different game than the games that we just broke down, or the Miami game, or this game with the Giants or whatever, is that the Jets are actually good on one side of the ball.
Yeah.
The Jets have a good defense to keep this game close enough. Now, if they get nothing from their offense, it is what
Or
it
if they
is.
get negative from their offense, like when they're turning the ball over, like they did against the
Exactly.
Chargers a couple of weeks ago, then even if they're playing well defensively, it becomes tough.
Right. So if they end up being that team that played in prime time against the Chargers, yes, they're going to be in trouble. It's a tough look. You're just not going to come back from that because your offense continues to put you in bad positions as a defense, but their defense is going to do as much as they can to keep this game close. And when you consider that 7 is just too many points, it was
Yeah.
too many points last week against the Broncos. It's too many points this week
I mean, they
against
they
the
were
Jets.
giving a hook against the Broncos, and I think maybe they learned their lesson a little bit by not putting the hook
Right.
on it this week, but still, I mean, it's a lot.
It's still a big number. So I'm leaning that way. I'd love to see the Bills actually figure out and make a good push in this season. I just don't know if that comes this week specifically, especially against a rival like the Jets.
Yeah.
This is going to be an interesting one to watch for sure.
Yeah, nobody
And
wants to live in a world where there's no Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, or Justin Herbert in the playoffs. That would be a travesty. So let's get it together, Buffalo.
we're going to have to clip that one for when that exactly thing happens and we're watching a bunch of backup quarterbacks in the playoffs like we have. What was
I'm
that, a
not
couple years ago?
watching Dorian Thompson Robinson in a playoff game. I promise you, I'm not doing it.
I'll have better things to do on that day, I for sure. Oh, all right. It's time, B.
Let's
It's
do it.
all led up to this, the game of the week, without a doubt. The Monday night feature this week. We're so lucky to get to witness this game in prime time. There's been a lot of stinkers in prime time. There's actually a lot of talk about trends for prime time games. And I think to some degree that has to go with them just being terrible, terrible matchups with bad teams. But finally, we get a really, really good one here. The Philadelphia Eagles head into Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Kansas City -2.5. You can find it at 3 in some places. Game total for this one 45.5. You've got a nice pick in this game. I really like it. I can't wait to hear you break it down. What are you leaning towards in this heavyweight matchup?
Well, if you guys have been listening to us all season, I'm sure you are expecting to hear me take the under in this game. But unfortunately, it looks like these bookmakers are maybe finally starting to catch on because they have moved this number quite low at the 45.5. And I just could not pull the trigger on this one. It's just a tad too low for me. So I'm staying away from the total this week. But I am definitely taking the Eagles to cover 2.5 points. The Eagles are just a better football team right now. It's just there's really no way else to put this one. They're the better team right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They have scored at least 23 points in all but one game this year. They have scored 28 or more points in 3 straight games. This offense is clicking on all cylinders. Jalen Hurts has been dealing with a injury the last few games, and yet he still just continues to dominate. His down the field accuracy has been fantastic, and the weapons with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown have just been a pleasure to watch. They're great at running the ball. We know what they can do on fourth down and short. It's just automatic for them. So this offense is fantastic. The question in this game is going to be what they can do defensively, because even though they have the best rush defense in the league, their pass defense has been quite atrocious this season. But thankfully, they're going up against a Kansas City passing attack that really has not been as good as they have been in years past. In their last 2 games, Kansas City has less than 215 net passing yards in each game. This Kansas City offense has scored 19 or fewer points in 3 of their last 4 games. They're just not playing very well. They're not in sync right now. Mahomes was sacked just twice in his first 4 games, but since then, in his last 5 games, he's been sacked 10 times. The Kansas City has also turned the ball over 5 times in the last 5 games. And now they're going up against a Philly defense that is tied for fifth in sacks this year with 30, and they're pretty solid at taking the ball away. So this is just a situation where I trust Philly's offense more than I trust Kansas City's offense right now. Kansas City does not have the playmakers outside of Travis Kelce to be able to keep up with what I expect to be a pretty high scoring Philly offense once again. So even though it's tough to pass on Kansas City when they're getting less than 3 points, I just think this Philadelphia team is significantly better right now.
Yeah, and you make a great point about the under because everybody watching this show knew we were going to talk about the under. And a great tidbit. I was talking to my buddy Carl here about this one. This total has plummeted
Yep.
over the last couple of days. It started upwards of 48 to 49 points and has just absolutely plummeted. 86% of the handle on this one went to the under. People have obviously been tailing you, V. They know what to pick. They know where the money's been making, and that's
Yep.
on Kansas City unders. And this one's plummeted all the way down to 45.5, which is frankly a really good spot for it. I'd consider this kind of the spot that you would expect it to be at 45.5. So it is a smart tag to just not touch it on this one. If you were able to get it much earlier, then mazel tov to you. Congratulations. But that doesn't, I think, scare us away in a sense that we are going to continue to chase these overinflated Chiefs totals, especially when we consider like this game in particular at 45 is one of the lower totals we've seen between two of the better teams
Yeah.
in the Kansas City schedule in particular. So it's not like we're not going to continue to shop those lines and see where they go. It'll be an interesting draw, but man, this one's going to be so good. And like you did say, frankly, we'd love to have 3. 2.5 isn't horrible. And if you shop around, it looks like it has moved to 3 in some spots. And that's why we harp on shopping around. So you can get that extra half point of juice there. I love it at 3-2. The Eagles are just way too good of a team, way too much offensively. We talk about A.J. Brown all the time. He looks absolutely unguardable, one of the top graded receivers in the league. And we've talked about Trent McDuffie before on the other side, so that's going to be another really, really good matchup. He hasn't sustained his kind of league leading level of play throughout the year, but he's still been absolutely fantastic. One of the top corners in the league. That matchup's going to be great. The good thing for the Eagles, though, is that their talent and depth run deep. They have playmakers all over the field. They're kind of getting whatever they want. We've talked about how complacency was kind of their issue early on. It doesn't really seem like it's their issue now. They're kind of getting anything they want. They're pushing the ball. They're being aggressive. What they have sort of questions on, I don't know if it's maybe a consistent question, but sometimes they seem to lack that intensity on defense. But that's not a huge issue right now facing the Kansas City Chiefs, because as we've talked about, the Kansas City Chiefs' second weapon is Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all you have to know about what's
And
happening
he's a
there.
good football player, but he should be a number 2 on
He
a league
is.
leading team right now.
Exactly the point. So this will be a good matchup. I'm sure we're going to have more stuff in the barrel for us this week. So everybody, make sure you check us out on Discord. In order to get into our Discord, hit up importantnonsense.com, become a member. That's how you can come in. Ask any questions about any games that we broke down here, any games we didn't break down. And we have even more picks in the betting thread in the Discord every single week. So you're going to want to go check that out. And V, that wraps us up for week 11.
11.
11. Goodness gracious. It's flying by, V. We're
Yup.
almost done here. We got a playoff push coming. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to keep breaking it down with you. We are back same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's Black Friday. I think we talked about it. I think there is a game going on in there. That time may be subject to change. So just keep locked in on our Discord and we'll keep you alerted, keep you posted on if anything changes with that. But as of right now, I think we're going to shoot for about the same time, keep it consistent. Otherwise, that's about it. More picks in the Discord. Hit up the site. And if you want to get yourself some IN merch, we would definitely appreciate it. Definitely helps us out a lot. You can use promo code LOCK for a nice little bonus on that. And yeah, that about does it. V, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
Just like you said, make sure to come into the Discord and check out the rest of our picks. Mason crushed it last week. He missed just one pick. It was a fantastic card for him. Make sure you're jumping in there, checking it out. And like we said, again, we are recording early, so some things might change. We'll have to be keeping an eye out for the injury report and see how some of these lines move throughout the week. So could be some updating going on in there too. So make sure to join in and follow along.
Yes, absolutely. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. And until next time, everybody, good night and good luck.